And there was this person sitting next to me, and he said, I'm very, very happy that it's all about engineered systems. This is the person who is driving the sales of engineered systems across ECEMEA. And he's going to talk about Oracle and Oracle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Jean-Claude. Michaca, by the way.
Thank you. We are already half an hour late. Good morning. You know, we have every 6 months, we have a broadcast. I think there's one coming up in 2 days. In the January one, Alfonso made a very important comment. Do you remember what it was? No? Do you guys listen when he speaks? You should. Because from time to time, he says things that makes a lot of sense. From time to time. He said, if you want to be rich and famous at Oracle, you need to sell engineered systems, right? You remember that? And at the same time, he came to me and he said, you know what? I want you to run engineered systems for the region. And you know the boss is Italian, right? So I put my best Robert De Niro acting on. Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? No, really, seriously, why me? I mean, think about it. I'm already rich and famous. I speak 6 languages. I'm culturally very rich. And with that, I'm very famous too. So boss, where's the compelling event? Try harder. Calm down, calm down. I haven't even started yet. So he said, well, you know, you have a lot of energy and you're still young. Young? Young? I'm turning 50 this year. It takes me, on average, 15 minutes to take a piss. You know? Way gone the time I could do this in 15 seconds. How can you call me young? Well, stop being cynical, Jean-Claude, all right? I'm going to give you the chance to reach your dreams. Excuse me? The fastest way to reach my dreams is to say I'm leading straight back to bed. Well, you know, you kind of understand what I was trying to do here. I was trying to walk away because I knew the growth expectation we had on this business. To put things in perspective, you know, we grew middleware by 100% in 3 years. That's nothing. That's a chicken's job compared to what we're going to do here. Because we're going to have to grow this business by more than 100% in 1 year. And no time for Kentucky Fried Chicken. We're going to have to run for our money. So I was kind of trying to walk out of it, and you know the boss. There's no way you win an argument with him. It's a bit like with women. You know, you can have the last word provided it's, yes, darling. But don't get me wrong, I do not say yes, darling to the boss. I mean, we are close, but not that close. All right, are you guys awake? Good, because I have some great stuff for you today. This is the year, as you heard it, that we're going to change the league. We're going to change league when it comes to engagement with our customers on Oracle and Oracle. We've been pretty good in FY12 in selling Oracle and Oracle in some places. In some places. Some others still have some catching up to do. We are, as an organization, very confident going into our customer, going into the elevator, pressing -1, going down to the basement, and having a technical conversation with technical people about InfiniBand and cores and CPUs and all the sort of things I have no clue about. But where we are not very good at is walking into the same elevator, going to the top floor, getting into the C-level's office and having a business conversation and talk about how can we help him to achieve his objectives and goals. And this is our challenge this year. As I said, we need to change league. And you know, when you change league, you need new tricks. So today, we're going to talk a lot about new tricks. Okay? And I'm going to take you today through a couple of things. I'm going to take you to talk about what's on the mind of a CEO and a CFO, what's been discussed in the boardrooms. Based on that, what are the new challenges to CIOs? How can you help? And then I'm going to give you a couple of tricks how to get traction with your customers. You know, when you are kind of stuck at technical level, how can you go to the top floor and have a business conversation? So let's get started. Let's look at what impacts the corporate strategy. There are 4 dimensions to it. The first one is the economy as in general, give you kind of a rundown on that and what is happening on the global competitiveness. The second thing is the business itself. You know, what is the dynamics here, what's happening? The third is the notion of time and transparency, because that has also changed. And last but not least, customers, because our customers look a bit different now. They're no longer like pigeon waiting to be shot. So let's start with the economy. You all read the news, you know. Europe is not in a bad shape. Europe is in a disastrous shape, you know. And we keep on throwing money at Greece and Spain and Italy, and I don't think we have seen the end yet. And you start to see a lot of tension inside of the European Union among the different nation states. I mean, the Germans still want to run the Eurozone and the Euro like if it's their own Deutschmark. The Spaniards woke up and figured out that they've been playing Monopoly with their real estate for the last 20 years. The Italians are paying the bill of 10 years of Bunga Bunga by Berlusconi. The French, you know, had enough of 5 years of tough reforms under Sarkozy, and they did what? Elected idiot. Excuse me, I'm not supposed to say that. Let's use a politically more correct synonym. A socialist. And then, last but not least, the Greeks are still struggling with their sponsor on all fronts, even during the Eurozone, the Euro competition. Okay, let's look at now the competitiveness on a more serious note here. The world is kind of becoming divided into along this red line that you see. There is a zone that is in decline, and there is this whole southern eastern belt that is in growth. And every job that we are creating in the east, far east, is destroying jobs that we're doing here in Europe. And you know what? You need to be cautious about this because those guys are becoming every day more powerful. They have everything. They have a young population, well-educated, they have access to a lot of cash, strong banks, they have all the raw materials they want. And one new thing that is happening now is they start to have very strong global brands. If you take the Fortune 500 top brands, 20% are coming up from that part of the world. That was not the case 10, 15 years ago. Look at where those brands were 10 years ago. Higher. It's a global appliance manufacturer. #1 in the world today, ahead of GE and Westinghouse. Huawei, beating the hell out of Cisco and Alcatel. Samsung, where was Samsung 10, 15 years ago? Head to head with iPhone today. So this belt is becoming very powerful. Now let's look at the business and the business challenges. Technology has this great ability to break down and reduce barriers of entry. And if you are in a services business, you are at risk. Because let me show you what happened here. Just take an example out of the telecom space. Last year alone, the telecom operator lost 14 billion of SMS revenue because of this technology. iMessage and WhatsApp, etc. 14 billion in 1 year. And that's just the beginning. So, who's next? This is not an isolated case. Something else. What we started to see is that the business becomes extremely interconnected at a speed that we have never seen in the past. Remember this, 2008, the subprime crisis in the US. Look at the impact it had. Started with a financial crisis, turned into economical crisis of the banking system in the world. It turned into a monetary crisis in Europe. The euro was under severe pressure, it still is. It turned into a social crisis. You had people on the street. People were camping in front of Wall Street. You have a political crisis. A lot of leaders lost their jobs. And now we have an existential crisis. Some people say, well, is Greece going to stay? Is Spain going to follow? Etc., etc. I don't know about you, but I have never seen anything that is so interconnected. And this is what we call the butterfly effect, where you have a butterfly in one part of the world flipping its wings, and then you have a thunderstorm on the other end. Let's look at the notion of time and transparency. Now, all this technology didn't exist 10 years ago, and they have profoundly changed the way we interact, we communicate, we recreate ourselves. So this has also put a lot of transparency on the system. Look at what happened in the Middle East. You know, a bunch of governments that have been around for 30, 40 years have been thrown out in a matter of months. Some people will even go and say, well, this application also has completely changed the way we interact. You know, Angry Birds. You know why they're angry? Because they have no wings, that's why. How about that for an explanation? And then there is the notion of being constantly connected. You see those guys all the time in airports, you know. They walk around like this, you know. Excuse me, sir. You know? And the worst that I've ever seen was, I was in a public toilet in an airport, having my 15-minute space as usual. There was a guy next to me, also. But he was answering his email at the same time. How bad can it get? Could we have this? 2 minutes before saying yes? Are you sure? And last one is the customers. Now, let's talk about this new generation, the millennium generation or the Y generation. Kids that grew up digitally, you know, with all those technologies and Nintendo and Station, etc. I mean, they are very different from us, and they are starting to put a lot of pressure on companies. So are you prepared, Mr. Customer, to know how to interact with them? Because if you remember the good old days, you know, for those who did marketing studies, Philip Kotler, it was all about the 4 Ps. Product, place, promotion, and packaging. But now there is a 5th P. And the 5th P is about people. Because for the first time in history, customers are not just waiting at the end of the supply chain to buy your products. They can interact with you at any stage. They can tell you what they want, they can tell you what they think, they can actually co-market with you, they can be your best advocate, or they can be your worst nightmare. Do you know how to master this? And then there is also this whole notion of explosion of data, the whole craze about big data. Of course, it's driven by social media and mobility, but it's also driven by the increased usage of sensor. Let me give you an example. I mean, I do a lot of biking, and I have one of those sensors on my bike. Every time I do a ride, you know, it calculates or captures hundreds of information about my heart rate, my speed, my rotation per minute, etc., etc. I load this up on the site, I can compare one race to the other, and this creates, every race creates hundreds of information. And you find those sensors in tennis rackets, in shoes, in smart meter, and this is what is really driving the whole craze about big data. And we made a fortune on managing structured data, and we need to make sure that we extend that lead into the unstructured world as well. All right, so all these things have an impact on the corporate strategy. Whether you want to, what I'm trying here to package is that we have the best TCO in the industry, proven time and again. We have the best performance with our engineered systems, time and again proven. We have now, with platinum support, the best SLA in the industry. We have even demonstrated that we have the better greener footprint compared to IBM and the others because we require less cooling and less floor space and less electricity. And last but not least, one more thing, like in every Steve Jobs presentation, one more thing. Oracle is working on unique functionality that will only be permissioned on our engineered stack. Let me give you an example. You're doing your monthly consolidation or your quarterly consolidation in 10 days, you'll be able to do that in a matter of a day or two. But that functionality of the application will only be activated on engineered systems. So if you are an application sales rep out there and you're competing against SAP, you need to know about these things. You need to be able to at least let your colleagues come and have a discussion about this. And for those who are struggling to remember those 5 things, I have a couple of things for you here. These are nuts. And you know what? Nuts are very good for the brain. And you guys, you're not supposed to tell me that I'm nuts, you know, because I have some bananas here too. All right, so let me tell you in confidence about what we can do. But for that, you need a strategy. You cannot wait until your customer comes with a tender and say, oh, I would like an apps to this deal. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to make that deal. And for that, you need a strategy. And I'll give you 2 examples. One of a good strategy and one of a bad strategy. Let's start with a bad strategy. Alcatel-Lucent, in 2000, in Africa. Because of their colonial ties, they were the #1. And they started to see a company called Huawei, which I mentioned at the beginning, started to take market share away from them. First reaction, their products is crap, they can only discount it. Okay, 5 years after, 2005, well, their products are not bad, you know, but we have a better regional coverage. We are everywhere. Okay, 5 years later, 2010, they picked up on all fronts. Huawei was even providing financing for their customers. You know what they said? We don't know how to compete against those guys. We have no strategy. So, let's talk about the good strategy. And that's the strategy of a toothbrush salesman. He was asked to sell 500 toothbrushes a day. And everybody has a toothbrush. What did he do? So he was in a shopping center, and he was distributing chips and a little sauce to everyone. And people were just testing and saying, this tastes like shit. It is shit. You want a toothbrush? I'm not telling you need to sell shit, but you need a strategy. So, meanwhile, the analyst community, did a quadrant. And of course, we are in that quadrant, the leader quadrant, and we're the only one. Let's look at the other section. In the section, muscles with no brains, there is a very big company that has a lot of IP and a lot of capability, but you know what? They suck at engineering. They need a lot of consultants to put every project on a bespoke basis as their customers. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome IBM here. And IBM, let me remind you that brains are like parachutes. They work the best when they're open. Next one is the section One Trick Pony. In that category, we have a company that has one answer to every problem. So you need more capacity, you need more disk. You need more business agility, you need to buy more disk. You need to have more insight in your data, you need to buy more disk. You need to lose 5 kilos, you need more disk. In that section, we have EMC. And in the last category, the losers category, there's a company that found that the only way to compete with us was in court. HP. Now let me be a little bit serious on HP. HP, this is coming out of their own site, The world is waiting for their mission critical platform. And they called it Odyssey. Now that's a Greek word. We have Greeks in the audience? Yes. Antonis, how long does it take? Did the Odyssey take? 20 years. Very well. Good answer. So what I did for you, I went to ask the Oracle of Delphi. Master, please speak to me. And you know what they said? Yes, but it will take them 20 years to make it happen. By the time we'll have painted the whole planet in red. Because when you do this properly, you will understand that people buy business value, and customers are kings, and kings never bargain. If you demonstrate the value to a CFO, he's not going to argue with you about 5% more discount on your software. And I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Because there is a tradition in this region. You know this notion about glass half empty or half full? There is an Eastern European version of that. And the Eastern European version is, when the glass is half full, we put vodka in it. And this is exactly what I want you to do. I want you to, with every license deal, attach an engineered systems. I'm at the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed it delivering to you, and I thank you very much.